Now this shirt,
Wait, hold on. You got to fix your collar.
this shirt has parrots on it.
Oh, cool.
This is from a company called Paradise Found.
Paradise Found. I like that.
Yeah, Paradise Found. And this one, I think is also silk. Yeah.
I love it. I think I love it. Look, we match. I'm in like a little bit of like this like Caribbean vacation-y necklace.
And my piece of jade, of course, is green. And that
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you the piece I wanted? This is my birth trying.
You have the button, your top button there.
Well,
One button.
You mean it's not sexy if I keep it open? Okay, fine.
Well, we're trying to be appropriate here for the masses.
Great. In the old days, you would have asked me to rip my shirt off, and that's another uh, but my point is, really, I think I'm really funny. All right. So anyway,
Well, obviously, I find you entertaining that we just keep having these conversations.
that's right. So what happened was anyway that this size piece of jade.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted a Buddha. Okay, and what I learned, and this is jadeite. This is a true piece of jade. But they have, just like with diamonds, they have a different level of quality.
Mm-hmm.
So this size Buddha in a Buddha that I wanted, really good jade at the time. This is back in 2007.
Yes.
Was $25,000 American.
Oh, for that size, for
That
$25,000? Wow.
I'm telling you, jade. I'm telling you, it is so crazy expensive. It's ridiculous. So there. Okay, I digress. Okay, now wait. First of all, remind me, what was the first question you asked me before? I just have to know.
My first question I asked you, what is your best advice for money?
Fine. Look at where we ended up. How about that? Okay.
I think it's hysterical. I mean, like the first question and then how our conversations go. Did you see that little meme that I posted on your Facebook page where it's like, we'll have one conversation, but then like 20 side conversations.
I missed that.
Well, welcome to the Art and Hustle Gallery Conversations. Welcome back here, Captain Schiavo, in your cool shirt that today we match, and we're feeling this like Caribbean parrots shirt that we have here today.
Right.
I love it. It's fun. And today's question is, what is your best advice for love and marriage?
Avoid it like the plague.
Do not do it. Do not
Don't
go
do
there.
I have to say this to you.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought in my life I would ever get married.
Really?
No, I wanted to be single. I had no urge to have children.
Yeah.
Okay. I had no urge ever to have children.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, you know what, in those days, I was having fun,
You were living the life.
I was living my dream. I had the horse and I had a pickup truck camper, with it. I used to go cross country with it.
You had a kitchen window.
Which that?
You had a kitchen window.
Right. I had.
That's a side conversation from another podcast. If
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly right. And then I had my bachelor condo. So I had my bachelor condo, my horse, my camper, and pickup truck. Right. I was doing a lot of traveling. I was traveling on all my vacations. I was off, I was spending Christmas in London sometimes, or sometimes in the Bahamas, and I was just traveling whenever I had the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, how shall I say, a list of women that I liked. They liked me.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, what would they
that
get?
you could call upon whenever you like to see them.
Yeah, and you know what was so fascinating, which I loved, was that they would call me. In other words, they would say, "Gee, how you doing?" And then here's what
how are you doing? Are you available?
And of course, basically, in those days, we didn't call them what they call them now, but they were booty calls,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were really enjoyable. They were fun.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have to remember too that the women at the time, they didn't want to really be hooked up for seriously a lot, because they also were enjoying the benefits of the birth control pill, which came out in I think 63 or 4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they no longer had to worry about getting pregnant. We also didn't have this incredible array of venereal diseases that would kill you, like AIDS and whatever.
Mhm.
They had, I think the ones you worried about the most were chlamydia and gonorrhea, those two.
Mhm.
And those could be cured with medications,
Mhm.
2 weeks of antibiotics. Um, I had one marriage, which was she was a very sweet girl, it was my mistake for lots of reasons. I owned it, and that it was my fault, as far as I'm concerned, and um, so she was sweet, innocent,
Well,
probably
that's good. At least you owned it.
no, yeah, probably too sweet, innocent, and also too young. Now, again,
Mhm.
all these things. So, and I tried to make it right in my way, but it only lasted a year.
Okay.
So, all right. So then, of course, a number of years go by, and here's what happens. And a lot of men have said to me the same thing, and some women too.
Mhm.
After you spend X amount of years, I spent what? I don't know. I got married at 32 to Ronnie.
Mhm.
So I spent all those years from 18 to 32, let's say, footloose, fancy free, and you meet a lot of different women with a
Mhm.
lot
Mhm.
of different backgrounds, a lot of different ages,
Different
and
nationalities.
yes, and they all have their, like I do. I have my pluses and minuses. They had their pluses and minuses. They had their emotional baggage. I
Mhm.
had mine. Okay.
Mhm.
And so in order to get married, especially when you're in your 30s, for example,
Mhm.
what drives people to do that, certainly the men I know, like my friend who just recently died, who was my age, was the fact that the good news about having relationships, however superficial, with lots of different women.
Mhm.
But some men, by the way, if they're lucky that they find one woman who will even accept them to get married. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
You have a whole bunch of men in this country now called incels. They are involuntarily celibate. That's what that means, incels.
Mhm.
I mean, they couldn't buy a date with you know $10,000 worth of bills in their fist at the local whorehouse. It's not going to happen. The women
Yeah.
would say, "I don't want
Mhm.
your money. Get out." Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So unfortunately, I wasn't one of those men. All right.
Mhm.
So, but what happens is you start to say, my God, most of them are kind of nuts, and most of them are just not in sync with my value system. If you go back to one of the other podcasts we made, I talked about
Mhm.
what makes a marriage, a,
Yeah. Which is a
what make,
which is a great advice.
yeah, but what makes a person attractive, okay, is when you start to realize that you have a shared value system,
Yes.
okay,
Yep.
in terms of ethics and morality, whatever,
Yes. Yeah.
and that plus the usual physical stuff, okay,
Mhm.
and what happens is if that's true, okay, and you do get married, what keeps people together is that shared value system. Now,
Mhm. Mhm.
I could say, I think Ronnie would say to me, we love each other. I
Mhm.
love her. I don't always like her.
Mhm.
Okay? And she doesn't always like me. You
Mhm.
know, and she'll let me know. And she'll maybe utter the odd, expletive. And by the way, I think over 45 years, I have really taught her how to. Here I am, a guy with I have to say, a very large vocabulary. But
No.
yeah, but I curse as well as anybody. Okay,
Mhm.
and she's
Mhm.
picked up all of my favorite curses, which are
Really?
I make George Carlin's Seven Dirty Words look like nothing.
Really?
Oh yeah, please, oh please. Okay,
Really?
and it's always and so what happens is when she's yelling at me and
Mhm.
she's really angry at me, and then she starts to use my curses back at me,
Oh, really?
I start to laugh. Okay, now and that's what's good because I start to laugh, and then she starts to laugh, and we realize, you know, what's going on here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think that if you said to me, the short answer to the question is you have to have shared values. Other
You gotta
part of it,
laugh.
what's that?
You have to have humor too, laughter.
That's shared value, and that's part of the value system. In other words,
Mhm.
you better have a sense of humor. If you're going to spend time with me, you have to have a sense of humor. That's number
Mhm.
one. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, you have to have, and this is where you Asian folk, I say that
You Asian folks.
The Asian folks, and that's true. It's true for the people in India, people in China. However, it was also true for the Italians in the old country, and that is
Mhm.
there was a reason why families had arranged marriages, because they
Mm-hmm.
also knew that you needed to be at a certain level of financial security for
Yes.
a marriage and a family to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be honest with you, uh, I have seen a number of arranged marriages, and some of the guys, let me tell you, their parents really did right by them because they wound up hooking them up with some wonderful,
Really?
yeah, beautiful women, and they
Mm-hmm.
came from families that were at the same basic economical level as their own family,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still together. Okay, so I get that. This thing about love is sometimes people use love as a lever, you know?
As a what?
As a lever, they'll say,
Hmm.
like I know in families, well, if you do, do you love my kids or do you love me? And
Mm,
okay, and I'm going, wait a second, no, I don't. First of all, if I how I feel about you is really my business. You know what I mean? I mean,
mm-hmm.
maybe I'll tell you, maybe I won't. I remember I had a friend of mine, one of my fishing buddies, who would always say to people that were really obnoxious, he goes, "Hey, look, how you feel about me is none of my business. In other words,
Mm.
you
Yeah,
like
I
me,
love that. I
yeah,
love
you
that.
like me, you don't like me, I don't really care. You deal with me in your fashion. I will deal with you in response to your fashion, or and I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to deal with you in my fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't worry about whether people like me or not. I just don't. In other words, I am who I am. I do what I do.
Did you always think that?
Yeah, because my feeling was, look, unless I am actively, consciously obnoxious,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason for them to be really upset with me. Now, could I
Did
make
you wait? Did you ever? Were you ever like self-conscious and not as confident as you are growing
Oh,
up?
oh yeah, I think in certain situations, I think everybody is. I mean, everyone is insecure about something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, I was more insecure about certain things, and as time went on, I became less so. I
Mm-hmm.
became insecure about other things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But never to the point where I think I felt I was debilitated or neurotic or
Mm-hmm.
desiring therapy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who were kind of like me, and most of them were my friends. So so that's really it. I think it's about shared values. It's about just making your commitment based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, and then you work out. You over time you work out the other emotional baggages that you have.
Mm-hmm.
With each other.
Do you have any other emotional baggages in your life that you need to resolve, you think?
Uh, Actually, no, no. First of all, certainly no, I have to honestly say, to my mind, no. Any of my family stuff, I resolved that a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
I do think this though. Sometimes I think, you know what? I didn't realize it, but I probably tough on certain women. Okay, not not abusive or anything, but probably I was a little too laissez-faire and a little too I don't know. I probably hurt their feelings in some way, and I didn't realize it till I got older. You
Oh,
know?
really?
Yeah.
Like
And
women you dated?
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. You know. And so I think maybe I wasn't always sensitive enough. Maybe I wasn't always attentive. I don't know. I mean, I guess what it is too is I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that I've always acknowledged the fact. No, I'm not perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
my wife said, "Oh, you think you're perfect?" I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I'm
There's no
perfect.
such thing as perfection.
But thank you. There isn't any. And
I probably got that in the Schiavo class of wisdom.
yes, you did, because I used to say that all the time. But I'll tell you what, I used to say that. I'll tell you why. Because first of all, that was the issue in philosophy and theology. So I know used to talk about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
About there's no such thing as a perfect country. No such a thing as a perfect person.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as perfection
Yeah.
on this planet.
Yeah.
It's not
And
going
it's
to
good
work.
because it keeps us humble, like the thing with
Absolutely.
insecurities and all of that stuff. Like I have plenty of them, so it keeps me humble. Like it
Sure.
doesn't.
And I know every time I dealt with other people, especially when I didn't like them, you know, look, I have to tell you, like working in a school, high school, there were so many faculty members for whom I had no respect, and no affection. I made a
Mm.
point, and I used to tell this to my students and preparing them to be teachers. I said the one thing you should never ever do, never say one nasty word, even though it's probably more than well deserved, about any of your colleagues. And I'll tell you why.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, A, it'll get around the building when you're working. That's A. B, especially when I retired, invariably I'd meet people at a party or at a store, and they'd find out how about the conversation led. It would say they'd find out that okay, I taught school, or they taught school, and also where I taught. And then every time I would say, oh, I taught at Central Islip High School, they said, well, do you know Mrs. So and so, or do you know Mr. So and so, or do you know Ms. So and so? And invariably, it was somebody for whom I had zero respect and zero affection. Okay?
That's
And I
funny.
always, I always lied through my teeth. I said, "Oh yeah, oh sure, absolutely." I didn't go crazy. I said, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, I know that person." And I might say, "Well, that person was in a different department," or if it was in my department, "Oh yeah,
And then
that
you
woman,
just smile, be like, yeah, I know them.
that woman was in my department, but
Hmm. Hmm.
it's like we had different
So
schedules."
like politically correct.
Absolutely. You have to be diplomatic because what
Hmm.
happens is that, and it could follow you the rest of your life. The other thought was the real reason I would do that wasn't because I was such a nice diplomatic guy.
Hmm.
I was also practical. I knew that probably I was going to have to work for
Hmm.
10, 20, 30 years or more
Hmm.
if I was working in that building.
Hmm.
And so, in order for you to do business with your colleagues, no matter how shitty they were as people or as professionals, you had to put a happy face on so you could get the jobs done. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now I'm better at most in controlling my anger.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, I probably the only one I get really angry at is my wife and vice versa. But most other people, I mean, I don't like when I used to go in. Here's a story for you. I used to go into most of my classes. I don't know if I did it with your classes, but over the years, I would always go into my classes and I'd say, "Good morning, class," and in unison, I would want them to say, "Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Captain S," or "Good morning, Captain Willie." Right?
Hmm.
And then I would say, "Okay, I just want you to know I'm in a vile mood." Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
and they go,
And they
so
would probably giggle or
but yeah, they would giggle. I know. So I remember after months of doing that, every once in a while a kid would come up. I'll never forget one guy, one girl. It was a girl came up to me. She goes, "Captain." I said, "What's about?" She goes, "You gotta, She goes, "Every morning after you say good morning and before you get started for the lesson, she goes, you always say you're in a vile mood." And you have never been in a bad mood on any day I've been in this classroom with you.
hmm
Why do you say that? I said, I'm warning you in case I crack. I'm warning you in case I have for some reason, I break down. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I just fall apart. But part of it was too. That's another thing. Um, uh, I had a graduate student come in, a girl, and she was observing my classes because she was in one of my methods classes at the time I was still working.
Hmm.
So, and of course, I'd say, well, let's while I'm still working, come in and observe my classes, and then you can see whether or not my philosophy of education that I'm teaching you, proselytizing about, is in fact the truth or BS. Okay, and you can make
Hmm.
your own decision if you watch me work. So they would come in and they'd watch me for like 5 periods. I taught 5 periods. They watched me for 5 periods. But I had mentioned in a previous podcast about teaching Dante's Inferno, and so one of the main lines that everybody quotes in Dante's Inferno is, as Dante and the poet Virgil are heading toward the entering, hell and stuff. There's a sign above the arch, and it says, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here."
Mm,
Okay?
yes.
So she says to me after the first class when she sees had a banner on the front wall.
Hmm.
And she goes to me, "Well, I don't understand you. You're so positive and you preach positivity." She goes, "But you got that message. Isn't that kind of contradictory? Doesn't that, defeat the purpose?"
Hmm.
I said to her, "See, I said, typical college student that's being too literal." I said, "When my students come look into my classroom and they have gotten used to me,
Hmm.
okay, after a couple of weeks, they realize, like a lot, that because I also taught this, that appearance is not reality, and reality, okay, is not, is not appearance, kind of thing. In other words, what appears to be true isn't necessarily true, and vice versa.
Hmm.
I said that's a perfect example. If there's any classroom into which they go in this building that there is hope for them, it's my classroom. Okay? And
Yep.
they get that instinctively and almost instantly. If anyone's going to be on their side, if anyone's going to, help them, as
Yep.
long as they don't do anything really bizarre, I'll be that teacher. Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be that teacher. And I think that you and your sister learned that, okay? And a lot of other students learned that.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was hope in Captain Willie's class.
There was. Yep.
Yep. So I mean, stuff like that. Okay, how was that? So now I'm trying to. I'm going to stop there. I answered that question before I go on.
I know now. Now you're purposely mentally taking a note of like, oh shit, how long did I go on with
All
that
right.
one question of
Absolutely.
best
Absolutely.
advice for love and marriage for
Right.
about 20 minutes? Well, listen, it's great no matter what because we ask one question and then you give me advice from another
Yeah,
and
but
then it
Linda,
segues to another
I'm,
one.
I'm going to say this.
Hmm.
As long as people who watch these podcasts see how much fun we're having and how much truth we're trying to arrive
Hmm.
at, and also, as consequently, it's entertaining and informative to them, then I think we're doing the right job, you know?
I totally agree. Like the last podcast I had just put out about your hobbies, Miss Winograd replied to me. I put it on the stories and Facebook, and she's like, "You guys make a great team."
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
great. That's good to
yeah.
know.
So she's really enjoyed them too. Learn something new every time she watches them. The beautiful thing about these podcasts is that also getting more people to be comfortable to come on these podcasts as well.
Yes.
So
Yep.
like Jordan gave me a call the other day and he's listened to a few of my CI student podcasts.
Right.
And the last one triggered him to want to come on because originally he was kind of on the fence. He wasn't sure if he would be comfortable to come on.
Right.
And so he listened to Josh's podcast with me.
Uh,
And after he listened to that one, he's like, you know what? I think I've changed my mind. I think I want to come on. But first I want to interview you because I feel like you've done a lot um, to give back to the community and these podcasts and being a
Sure.
bridge. He's like,
Sure.
so I want to shine a light on you and have people get to know you. Filmed our podcast yesterday where he asked me the questions.
Now, it's funny you mentioned that.
Hmm.
He called me last night.
Oh, he did.
Called me around dinner time.
Yeah,
And he
I
was
think
on,
he was on a high because he called me too.
yeah, yeah. And he called, and he said about he was on the fence about doing them. So I said, look, I said the only caution I have for you, unlike for me, is since you're still working, you have to be a little more circumspect, a little more diplomatic about what you say, because hey, I'm retired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't
I
give
don't
a F.
I don't, yeah, I don't have to worry about somebody, firing me or calling me on the carpet or giving me a hard time. I said, no, he's still working.
Hmm.
Again, it goes back to what I was saying about dealing with shitty colleagues that, unprofessional colleagues and terrible
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
You have to work with these people for the rest of your career. And that was my only caution to him. I said, I said, look, you got personality. I know you always have a lot to say, so forth and so on. I said, that's great. And on that basis, you should do them. But I want you to be aware that you do have to be careful. There are certain areas that might get you into trouble. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And me, I'm footloose and fancy free here because I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
And
care.
I feel like it would be great for him to talk about him being a teacher, why he wants to be a teacher. And I'm sure he has advice also, like he does real estate as well. And no matter what, for people who are on the fence and are not sure about it, I always let them know that listen, I'll edit it and I'll send it to you. So in case you want to remove anything that you're not comfortable with, I am totally for that.
In fact, it's funny. I was teasing him one time about how I said, "Yeah, he's like a younger version of me. He was teaching school, okay,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
he was selling real estate, because I sold real estate.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, but you see, here's what's interesting about that is it just goes to show you that teachers, even though salaries are much better than they were when I started,
Hmm.
that all things being relative, teachers need to make more money because the economy has gotten more expensive,
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
It's
but
funny.
going
I
back,
never knew that he wanted to be a teacher.
who that he
Jordan.
that he did. Uh, I didn't know it till I didn't know it either, really. As I don't, at least I don't recall him ever telling me before he graduated. You know.
I
But
know.
again, but I have to say, Linda, I have to be careful because there are so many things I don't remember. Now, there are a lot of things I do remember from way back.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
never forgot, but then other things. I remember when you had the podcast with Sarujini,
Hmm.
and I had told you about how she told me the story about the 7-Eleven and you know
Yeah.
ripping the guy
Yeah,
a new
like why is your English so good?
yeah, right. And she was shocked when I saw her podcast with you. She seemed to be shocked that I remembered that.
Hmm.
And I the best I can say about that is not that I have such a wonderful memory is, but I think the most positive thing I can say is it proves should have proved to her and to you. I actually did listen to my students.
Hmm.
I mean, I actually took an interest and I listened to them, and it's stuff that, and I learned from her and I learned from you, and as a consequence, I remembered those things. You see,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I think that that's a, a compliment to myself that I appreciate is that I was in fact if I had any doubts about my being superficial, I tried to stop being superficial because my students kind of taught me to not be that way.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
was proof of the pudding that I was in fact listening to them and not being superficial. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. So
So
next question, what is your best life lesson that you learned or took the like hardest for you to learn?
those are two different answers.
Yeah.
I think the best life lesson I really learned from my father. In fact, I just saw my sister a couple of days ago, and we went to the cemetery because it was they were over in Calverton, the military cemetery.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
mother and he, mother and him and my his brother, my uncle Joe, and it was just this, the whole notion of live and let live, be tolerant of others. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I've always been that way. I never had this thing that oh, I don't like this person because he's got red hair, or I don't like this person because she's Irish, or and I'm
Hmm.
Italian, or I never had that. Okay, and
Hmm.
I learned that from him. It was live and let live. Basically be tolerant. Be pleasant. And then, of course, along with that was that when I told you about, with women, about well, treat all women like ladies because the ones who are expected, and the ones who aren't will love you for it.
Hmm.
That was another kind of tolerance. In other words, you weren't going to say, well, this woman's a slut or something.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
was for him. That was a no-no. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that was probably the among the best of my life lessons. One of the things you said was something that was hard for me to
Yeah, the
learn.
hardest lesson for you to learn.
To not tell my teachers what I really thought.
Really?
Yeah, I got in trouble. Ooh, at least two or three times, big time.
Really? You
Oh
actually
yeah.
you told like what
I
how old were
told
you?
I was a senior, but what the worst one was, I'll never forget it. I was a senior, okay, taking a course. It was a social studies class. Jordan would appreciate that. Um, the guy was the chairman of the department. Okay,
Hmm.
and he was
Hmm.
teaching, and he had us in alphabetical order. Like I
Hmm.
used to have my class in alphabetical order. So, and my best friend, my last name, of course, started with an SC, and my best friend, his uh, last name started with an ST, and
Hmm.
we were really tight, and we used to go double dating. He drive or I drive, and so we spent a lot of. Then of course we spent a lot of time together playing ball and things like that.
Hmm.
So I guess it was a Monday or Tuesday. It was something after the weekend. Or could it be reversed? Maybe it was near the end of the week and we were talking about what we were going to do on the weekend. So I
What
kept,
dates you have lined up?
yeah, right. So we kept talking to each other. We thought we couldn't be heard because we're in the back of the room.
Oh, uh-oh.
All right. So what happened was, uh, and this, because again, I know I guess I had a reputation as a kid being a little bit of a smart ass because my vocabulary was very good.
No,
Oh,
you?
no, well, yeah. So what happened was, he said, "Bip, bip, bip." I guess at least two or three times he asked us to be quiet.
Uh-oh.
And then I guess the last one or two times, he,
Uh-oh.
he made it specific to me. And so finally he lost it. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, "All right, you go to the office." I said, what he said was, he said, "Listen, you need to pay attention because you got to pass this regents or you're not going to graduate," some kind of nonsense like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of
Mm-hmm.
course, all the time, every time I took a regents, I was always getting in the 90s. I mean, it was never like, I don't care whether it was
Yeah.
science, like
Yeah. Yeah.
biology,
I mean,
physics.
in case people don't know, you're a genius.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. It may be true, but that's another story.
It is true because you told me.
But see how it works. Okay, so by the
It's
way,
the other podcast if anybody wants to hear.
yeah, I should talk to them about what IQ means. But anyway, which I will.
Mhm.
So anyway, he said, well, you need me to graduate. So then I stand up. I stand up from my desk, and
Uh-oh.
I'm shouting at him from the back of the room. I said,
Really?
I don't need you to pass to pass the regents. All I need is an AMSCO review book and 2 weeks, and I'll still get an A.
Oh.
And then I walked out of the room. I mean, I just totally defied him and basically humiliated him. I think I have said you're the most. I may have said, because I don't recall.
You
You're the most
probably did.
boring. You're the most boring teacher I've ever
Yeah,
had.
I was like waiting for you to say more. I'm like, you're smart and intelligent. You probably told him, listen, your class is boring. I don't
No,
need to.
I said that he was boring, and he
Yeah.
was boring, right? So now, of course, I
Uh-oh.
I leave the class, and well, and I went to the library because the librarian. I used to work for the librarian, and she loved me, and I loved her. So anyway, I go home, and my mother comes home a few hours
Mhm.
later, right? And she tears into me. She goes, "I got a call from the principal, and I have to meet with him tomorrow with
Mm.
you in his office." I went,
Uh-oh.
you kidding me?"
Mm-hmm.
So long and short of it was, and this is where my mother was good. My mother was tough. She knew I had a tendency to pop off, to be rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, I was a bit rebellious, defiant, whatever. So what happens is, uh, I he tells her what the teacher told him.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them both what I told the teacher. I was up front.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother says, "Well, look, Mr. So and so, the principal, whatever punishment you decide is fine by me because I've warned him about his
Mouth.
rude mouth. Yeah, his rude,
Yeah.
rebellious mouth. And if
Yep.
he doesn't graduate, he doesn't graduate." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm thinking, as long as they let me take the exam, I'm going to graduate. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number one.
You still had this like cocky attitude.
And yeah, and the other thing was, so now of course they say the magic words. This was to show you what a, what a little bastard I could be. It winds up, the principal says, "Well, Mr. So and so doesn't want you back in his class ever again." Okay.
Wow.
And this
Mm-hmm.
is around. I guess this must have been the spring semester, probably midway through the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a quarter and a half before the Regents.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, so he said, "I have worked it out." I guess I don't know whether I guess he worked it out. He knew I was tight with the librarian. He said, "What you're going to do is you're going to go, instead of going to Mr. So and so's class, you, shoot, you're going to go
To the
to
library.
the library." Right?
The
So now,
favorite place in the world.
exactly. So now I'm thinking,
Isn't this your mentor also?
so I'm thinking, yeah, well, the librarian definitely was. So I'm thinking, okay, doesn't he realize that this is my happy place in school? Number one.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
Number two, well, of course, what is that going to allow me to do? It's going to get my AMSCO review book and
Hmm.
study it and prepare
And
for
you're
the
gonna get
exam.
smarter and smarter because you're gonna read more and
Absolutely.
more books.
And my
Were you trying to
mother,
not smile?
no, I was being dutifully, I was trying to look, repentant and, whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, and I didn't want to tell my mother, my God, she doesn't realize this is great. I don't have to go back to that terrible, boring,
Boring class.
yeah. And it was true. So now, of course, here's what happens. Moral of the story is, I do exactly what I said I was going to do. I studied for the exam. Now
Absolutely.
I got all 90s and above it, 95s
Yeah,
on
yeah.
my regents was right.
Don't test the genius.
Yeah, please. So here's what happened. But I think I may have said to the principal, I really didn't want my teacher to mark my regents. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
uh-oh.
I was ballsy enough to say that. I said, because you know what? He can't hurt me on the short answer questions, but he can hurt me on the essay questions.
It's
Okay.
bias. It's conflict of interest.
Absolutely. So here's what happened. I'm not sure he ever really listened to me, but I did really well on the first part, the short answers. I get my Regents grade, and what is it? He screwed me for a point. I got an 89 on that Regents. Not, I would figured I'd be good for a good solid because I wrote really well, so I knew my stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
I figured I'd get at least 94 to 95 on the Regents,
Yeah.
96. So I got an 89. But the point was, A, I didn't need him to pass the Regents. That was the funny.
Mhm,
So obviously, I was right about that.
mhm,
Also, in those days, I think they changed the rules. But let's say you got four Fs for a whole school year, okay? But you took the Regents for that class and you passed it with a D,
mhm.
okay? You got credit for the whole course. You got
Really?
the credit, yes. That was the rule. In other words, if you passed that Regents,
Wow.
you failed four quarters.
Mhm.
It's zero. Okay, did no homework, anything.
Wow.
You passed the Regents. Now, I
Really?
didn't push it that far. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that now I know that they changed that, and I used to. In fact, I helped a girl. My mother's friend's daughter was having problems, and they thought she wasn't going to graduate. And I forget, guess it was the English Regents. I tutored her on the English Regents, and I
Mhm,
gave her the tricks to pass the English Regents, especially the essay part.
mhm,
And she did. She passed, and she was fine. But I mean, I think that because she passed the Regents, she graduated. I always loved that because I think that even today, I would want students to be able to do that again because there are some really, really bright students who don't want to do their homework,
mhm,
and they have lots of reasons for not wanting to be in school. They may have
mhm,
terrible teachers, boring teachers, whatever.
mhm,
But if they pass the Regents, that's it. They should be golden and get their diploma.
mhm, mhm.
So that's where I'm kind of
That would
radicalizing.
be kind of funny to give it to students who are super smart in the beginning of the beginning of the year and see if they pass, and then they don't have to do any homework for the rest of the year.
Now, wait a second now, Linda. Let me tell you, when I was teaching the 11th grade, I started teaching 11th grade Regents and 12th grade, okay?
Mhm,
And for years, I taught it like 11R class at least, and now I teach my seniors. The first thing I would do is give them a practice English Regents from the year before,
mhm,
okay? And I would give them the short answer only.
mhm,
From the score on the short answers, which was worth 50 points,
mhm,
from the scores that attained on the part one, I could interpolate it and say, okay, oh, they're going to pass the Regents with a C, a C plus, or a B
mhm,
minimum,
mhm,
without any instruction from me whatsoever. Okay.
mhm,
Yeah. So then, what was my goal? Let's assume I said a kid had was got a C plus on part one. Okay. Then my job is to say how much better can I get that student to achieve on
mhm.
that part one than that
Were you the only one who did this?
I don't know.
Mm,
But you want the truth?
mhm. Probably.
Probably.
Probably. I mean, that's super smart to do that because then you'll be able to gauge their intelligence and how much you need to teach them.
Yeah, because again, you see, this is the other thing too, is that this speaks to IQ. Now, I think people think, oh, IQ. If you have a high IQ, that you're going to be really successful. No, that's not the truth. IQ is funny. Uh,
Mhm.
it's a. By the way, IQ can improve with age. Number one. Number two. Um,
Oh, I mean, look at me.
Linda,
I'm getting better with age.
yes, well, you are. Most people, if they're paying attention, usually do. But just because your IQ, you have a genius IQ, doesn't mean that you're going to be successful.
No, it doesn't.
By usually by happenstance, okay, that you get into an endeavor that is in sync with your IQ, okay,
Mhm.
and then you go, oh my God, this person's a genius. Okay, now
Mhm. Mhm.
they always tell the story, which I think is spurious, about how Einstein failed algebra and when he was in school. I
Mhm.
don't think I read something like, but that wasn't really true. But here's the thing: here's a guy who was working in a post office or something, whatever, and he had his mind in math and physics and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was his intellect and his IQ were in sync. Okay. Now, I've known people who had genius level IQs. They were failures in their life for lots
Mm-hmm.
of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Partly they got into the wrong fields. They they became drug addicts,
Mm-hmm.
alcoholics, whatever. In other
Yeah.
words, you could be really, really bright. I mean, I had lots and lots of really bright students.
Yeah.
Genius IQ kids, and they
But
were just total screw ups. They were total screw ups. Okay.
yeah, what you never know, right? You never know.
Yeah. So I mean, so I don't set great store by that. I also know lots of students who were what I would call having, you know, kind of an average level of intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and who they worked hard and they achieved great success because they
Yeah.
worked really hard, they really focused,
Yep.
and there's a lot to be said to that. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a big favor of okay, someone's a genius, therefore they get a pass in life. No, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. It's not how
Mm-hmm.
it works. At least not for me.
Yeah, you need a combination of multiple
Sure.
things to be
Yeah.
able to succeed in life.
But at any rate, yeah. So I was not necessarily I was definitely a rebellious and probably with certain people I probably spoke out of turn. You know, I think part
Mm-hmm.
of it was too I wasn't going to be I was I think smart enough to not be wanted to be treated like a freaking moron.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to be treated, so if I'm respecting you, don't you have to respect me. I just felt that this particular teacher too, there was history between us, and I didn't like how he dealt with me, spoke to me. I just felt that, I think you're a little out of line. But
Like
even
disrespectful.
so,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember telling my students, I used to tell them this story in my classes. I said, I was wrong. I was wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
was disrespectful to my teacher, uh, and I understand it now that I'm on the other side of the desk. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I,
Mm-hmm.
what I call the right side of the desk, I'm teaching. I'm the one doing the teaching and preaching, and my students have to listen to me. I said, yeah, I understand why I was wrong. I understand why he was, irritated, um, and I really was out of line. And my mother agreed that I was out of line. My
Mm-hmm.
principal agreed I was out of line.
Mm-hmm.
I was out of line. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I was smart enough to get away with it to a certain degree. Okay. You know what I mean? In terms of like the
Mhm.
threats he made, oh, you're not going to pass the Regents for that.
Wait,
Well,
did he grade your regions?
that's my point. I think that's why I got the 89.
Ah, because he didn't want you to get the 90
Exactly right.
ish. Yeah,
Exactly
right?
right. Because here's where students have to worry when teachers grade their papers. It's black or white. You either get the
Mm-hmm.
right answer, it's true or it's false, or yeah, or
Yeah.
if it's A, B, C,
Yeah.
and D, it's either C or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the essays, now it can work both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of times, and I did it with my students,
Mm-hmm.
if I could help them, if I could say, well, gee, this essay is better than I thought it might have been, or
Mm-hmm.
it's better. And so I could say, well, okay, instead of giving him, I guess it was, let's say the essay was worth 20 points. Instead of giving him, that person, like, say, 12 points, I could bump it maybe to 14 points. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that extra 2 points would help him go to, let's say, from a C plus to a B, or a C to
Mm-hmm.
a C plus, or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which you could help that student along. It was subjective enough that if you wanted to help a student, you
You
could.
could.
But conversely, if you wanted to really screw a student, you could.
Yeah.
You could see, and that was the problem I had with certain teachers were when they said, "Well, my grade is my grade, and I'm not going to change it." Certain teachers have every right to maintain that grade. Let's say a kid failed, the passing grade was a 65, and the kid got a
Mm-hmm.
64 average. As a consequence, wouldn't pass the course, wouldn't graduate. We
Mm-hmm.
had teachers who would do that. And my,
Yeah.
and my,
Yeah. That was in my podcast.
yeah, and my discussion about that with the principal was, hey, we know this particular teacher has a reputation for this kind of nonsense, okay, and it's subjective, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not fair to the kid.
It's not fair. Yeah. Yeah.
But he would say to me, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
really, unfortunately, the law is on his side, and I can't change his grade. I can't change his grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to get so ticked at those kinds of teachers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was someone who I spoke to on my podcast, and he told me a story. I mean, you could hear it. You'll know the name when you
Yeah, but don't
watch
have,
the
but
podcast.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna name the names,
Okay, don't
but
give me the teacher's name.
I'm
Okay,
not gonna give you the teacher's name. But it's in my podcast where he named a name,
oh,
and
okay.
so he did not. He there was two of my friends didn't graduate with us
But
because the teacher.
can I ask?
Um,
Can I ask one other question now? Was the teacher? Uh, was the teacher an English teacher or a science
yes,
teacher? An English teacher?
yes.
I know exactly who it is.
I know you know who it is.
But
So two of my really close friends did not graduate with
Ask me
us.
something else. Ask me something else.
Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, of course. I think when people say, "Oh, I have no regrets," I mean, everybody quotes a famous song sung by Edith Piaf of France about "Je ne regrette rien," which means I regret nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, no, I think everybody has regrets. Some are bigger, some are smaller. I
Mm-hmm.
have some regrets. Yeah,
You do.
I
Okay.
think that those are the ones that cause me some level of uh, um, melancholy and irritation when I'm being reflective of my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But were they major? I guess. But here's the other thing too: the regrets or are in the past, and if there's anything I've come to learn, it's over. I can't change the past. It was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
All I can do is do better in the future,
Mm-hmm.
but the future may not come. I can only then be better right now in the present. So,
Mm-hmm. Is there anything on your bucket list that you have that you want to do in the next couple of
I'm going to
years?
say this, and people will not believe me. I have done not everything on my bucket list, but more than I ever put on the list.
Mm,
Seriously,
really? That's awesome.
yes, I never thought, for example, I would ever get my own horse. Okay, I never thought I would have
And that was the first thing you had, right? Is the horse the first thing or surfing?
surfing.
Surfing was first. Okay.
Surfing was first. But I related how surfing, the sitting astride my surfboard
Yes.
on the waves
Was similar.
was similar to riding a horse, being
Hmm.
astride a horse,
Hmm.
at a lope, at a canter,
Hmm.
Um, so, but no, I went to places I never, all the places I ever wanted to go to, I went to, plus
Hmm.
more, plus
Hmm.
places I've even forgotten that I've been to. I mean,
Wow.
I've been all over Western Europe, Eastern Europe. I remember I was in a castle in Romania that was. I mean, I've been in places, like all up Central America, South America.
Hmm.
Name a place I've probably been there. Um, Lots of time in Asia. Japan, mainland China,
Hmm.
Southeast Asia. I mean, one of the great ironies is that I was concerned about being having my ass shot off in the Vietnam. Okay, and I went to Vietnam North and South. And one of the funniest stories is we're walking through the jungles of North Vietnam, and
Hmm.
tour guide is showing us these depressions in the ground from bomb blasts, right?
Wow.
So as we're walking down this one trail through the jungle, he says to me, to the front of the whole group, and guess what? He called me. Well, guess what, Willie? He said, you couldn't be wearing that shirt you're wearing during the Vietnam War. I was wearing like one of my loudest Aloha shirts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I stood out like a sore thumb in the jungle.
Uh-huh.
I would have been a really great target for
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time. So I know I've been I've just done. I have no in terms of bucket list, no. And there are certain things I never wanted to put on my bucket list, like jumping out of an airplane, skydiving.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, have you ever gone skydiving?
I want to. I mean, the only thing you put on your bucket list is things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And there are certain things I just never wanted to do.
Hmm.
That's one of them, you know.
Hmm.
So, um, and I had a whole life in Manhattan for 2 years where that's a story I'll tell you in private, where I was hobnobbing with lots of Broadway celebrities and
Hmm.
writers for the New York Times and the
Oh,
Times.
wow.
Yeah, I had a friend who was very well off and was in that whole ambiance, and I did it for two
The
years.
whole world.
Yeah, and then I decided, you know what? I'm a country boy. I want to go back to my horse, and I'm out of here. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it while I did it, but
Yeah.
then I
At
realized, you
least
know
you
what?
experienced it, right?
That's exactly my point. Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Do you have any new hobbies or something that you want to learn?
Uh, truthfully, no,
Mm.
no. I do my little bit of light gardening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I do my reading. I'm at a point in my life where I was outdoors my whole life, hiking, camping, surfing, riding horses, boating and fishing, and yeah. And now that I'm in my late 70s, I just want to relax.
Mm. So
I don't want to.
peace and zen.
That's exactly right. You know, I
Peace
did
and
all.
zen.
I look. I used to read all the philosophers when I was a young man, and they said that youth and beauty pass away quickly, and that your job here is to improve your mind
Mm-hmm.
and to, I guess, think the great thoughts and seek truth and beauty, and as a consequence, you'll get happiness. And I'm at that point. I'm much more, I would say, philosophical,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm shocked because my body still works. I don't. My knees are good. My ankles are good. I only have a weakness in my back because my horse and I had a disagreement halfway through our relationship, and he won and I lost.
But there was a few disagreements, right? Like, did he throw you
Well,
off
no,
like
but,
three
yeah, but
times?
but usually I won, but this one time he won and he won big time.
Oh,
He
okay.
put me in the hospital for 2 weeks and in a brace for 3 months, and
Yeah.
my back, and that back injury has gotten arthritis in it, so it's gotten more and more painful.
Oh.
The orthopedic surgeon warned me about it, and as a consequence, I think of my horse Showboy every morning when I wake up.
Oh, you're like, thanks, showboy.
Thank you,
Thanks.
man. And I love that animal. He was a beautiful. Well, you saw the
Mhm.
pictures. He was a beautiful horse.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any life lessons that you would like to pass on to other people?
Well, I think this. I no, I think when asked, with you, like any students would say, well, what about this, what about that, I'll say, oh yeah, here's what I think, whatever. But I don't like to give advice, kind of. In other words,
Hmm.
I'll say to you, if like when kids would ask me for advice, I say, well, if I were you, I
Hmm.
would do this and this and not
Hmm.
that and that. However, I'm not you. Okay.
Hmm.
And so, for example, I'll give you a perfect case in point, because I with a former college student of mine, I had a brilliant college student, a woman, talented teacher. She wound up going into teaching, got tenure at a very nice school. She was a brilliant English teacher.
Hmm.
And then she had an opportunity. She was saying, well, you know what, maybe I want to get my PhD, and maybe do that, and maybe teach at the university. And her family and I both agreed, why would you do that? You're already a tenured position, you're making good money, you got fringe bennies, bip, bip, bip. And she said, well, yeah. So I know her father and I agreed, hey, stay where you are. You should be grateful, you should be lucky. Now remember, our generation, her father's generation, my generation, we looked for, he was saying, we want jobs that make us happy, and jobs that put food on the table, and jobs that are secure.
Hmm.
She, I guess, tossed it around for a year or so and said, nah, screw this. And she resigned from her tenured position, went off to get her PhD,
Hmm.
wound up teaching at a university,
Hmm.
and married somebody she, liked, and she's doing fine.
Hmm.
And so what I'm saying is that, okay, my advice would have been was much more conservative,
Hmm.
and thinking about, well, I want her, like her father, to be protected, to be financially and personally secure. Okay.
Hmm.
And she said, yeah, I'm not having that. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, I
Hmm.
have great respect for that decision. I really do. Had she listened to me or listened to her father, she might have been okay. But she felt she had a dream that she wanted to live. And so she
Hmm.
lived her dream, and it worked out being great for her. See?
Yeah.
So I've always, even when I was talking to high school kids, I was always very cautious, about well, look, you're asking me. I wouldn't have told you if you didn't ask me. And here's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a girl. This is a perfect example. I had a girl that very pretty girl, and one of these natural blondes and shapely, the whole thing, and and you know, an average student. And comes into school one day, I guess after the weekend, and she shows me. Okay, remember this is a long time ago. She
Mm-hmm.
shows me this very bright tattoo of a flower on her hand. Okay, and I'm thinking, "Whew, you know, I don't know that you want to have a tattoo. Put it someplace where no one's going to see it if you're looking for a job
Mm-hmm.
or if you're going to a fancy ball." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was way back, and I kind of said, oh, I mean, I didn't give her a hard time about it. I just noted it, and I'm saying, gee, I wouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look at how people are about tattoos now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have nothing against people getting tattoos. It's their body. Their bodies. They can do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also in the real world of, like, okay, if you're going to go look for a job in certain areas of endeavor, well, probably you need to be able to hide those tattoos.
Yeah, because there'll be prejudices of what they will think of you.
Absolutely. I once had a girl, I'll never forget it. Uh, oh, then we'll end here. I had a girl in one of my classes, a black girl, and we were talking about getting jobs and going to job interviews because I used to
Mm-hmm.
do that with my seniors every year. And she was wearing the style, the fashion was these giant, giant gold hoops earrings.
Oh yeah, back in the days, yeah.
Yeah. And I made a
I
comment
think they call
about
them door knockers.
what, yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know what the slang was. So I was talking about how, when you go in for these jobs, especially if you're a person of color, you got to be a lot more buttoned down. You got to,
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, when I went for a job, I didn't go in with my aloha shirt and in fact, my hair was, I had to cut it kind of short as it ever was because my hair was all blonde from being out in the sun in Hawaii for 3 months, and
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid, oh my God, they're gonna never hire me. They'll say, oh, Joe Surf dude, God knows.
Yeah, Joe Surf dude.
Yeah, so I wore a nice, sincere looking dark, blue tie, and I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
really dressed conservatively for the interviews because how I had been instructed, and that's what I knew. So I said, well, if you can't go in, like some of you guys and girls, you can't go in, with that kind of stuff on or that kind of jewelry. You got to
Mm-hmm.
tone it down. And so the girl says, well, I don't want to be a sellout. I said, well, okay, look, I agree. You don't want to be a sellout. That's fine. Just
Mm-hmm.
understand you're going to be somebody who didn't sold out and you're going to be poor. So you don't mind being poor, and you
Yeah,
can be poor. You can wear your gold earrings,
yeah.
every day.
Sometimes you have to play the game, right, to get the job.
Look, is it fair? No. Is it
No.
biased and bigoted? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this is unfortunately, this is the way, especially in private
Yeah,
companies.
it's society.
Yeah, but it's also private corporations in particular,
Yep.
or
Yep.
public schools. I mean, come on.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, like I worked in corporate world in fashion, so you have to play the part.
No question about it. No
Hmm.
question about it.
Yes.
On
On
that
that
note,
note,
we should end. Okay.
on that note, thank you very much for joining me again today, and till next time. So thank you.
Yeah, these were, I thought, a lovely, pleasant, and I think kind of humorous po two podcasts we did.
They always are to me. I mean, they always are interesting and informative, and I think that people will, enjoy them. So
I hope that whenever people say anything positive about these podcasts, you tell them, get back to them, say, hey, spread the word to other people. If you're enjoying them, let other people know that you're
well,
enjoying
there
them.
you go. That's perfect. We'll do a little snippet short on this one where if anybody's enjoying these, share it, like it, comment. If you have any more questions for the
Sure,
guru right here, he
sure.
will answer your questions on my next podcast.
Yes, you may not like his answers, but that's okay.
But that's okay. And for everybody, click subscribe and help me get those algorithms up. I think I'm at 409 now, so it's going up there. So it's getting there. So I just need 1,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I always tell people to spread the word,
Mhm, mhm.
whatever. And
I know you have plenty of students who love you. They should all be helping.
well, that's it. And you know what also bothers me though? If they're
Mhm.
seeing these, they're watching these, I would really wish that they would contact me.
Yeah.
Say, hey, Sort, make whatever comments. And also, I think they have to understand.
Hmm.
I say to the grandkids, "Hey, look, your grandmother and I are not going to be here
Yeah.
forever, and
Well, I think that's the. I feel like the reason why I contacted you is because I was wanted to do a podcast. So I feel like maybe people who don't have a particular, I guess, I don't know, but unless they feel like, oh my God, I need to Schiavo, I need to talk to him, I need advice or whatever. Maybe they just feel like, you know, a way about contacting you. I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, I'm always happy to hear from students, especially if they're not going to blame me for everything that went wrong in their lives. But I also think this: I never had the benefit of grandparents. They all died before.
Yeah, I never had ones that would
And I
really.
was telling,
Mhm.
my stepson's two daughters, I said, uh, you have two grandparents here who have lived very, very interesting and productive lives. And
Mhm.
guess what? You need to understand, you need to use us as a resource. We have things to tell you. And you know me, so I have stories to tell. Now,
Mhm.
where they both agreed and they used the resource, they used me as the English teacher, the professional, the professor. So
Mhm.
all through college, especially even in high school, but mostly college, they would ask me to look over the term papers and
Oh, okay.
things like that, essays and what have you.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
correct the grammar and I give
Mhm.
them, some suggestions and so forth and so on. And they did that all the way through.
Mm. Mhm.
Even now, like one is going to be a senior. She doesn't really need much help. She's really an excellent, excellent writer. Has a good vocabulary and stuff like that. But I, I, um, I, anytime they asked me to help them, I never
Mhm.
said no,
Mhm.
even when it was probably they should have been giving me more warning and more time.
Mhm.
I had to stay up late, or
Oh, yeah. You're like, listen, I don't want to be staying up late doing this.
yeah. I mean, I was happy if they wanted my help, I was going to give them my help.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But I think that this is a resource. I didn't, but like this, I see you asking me questions, and basically it's as a life resource. What about this and what about that and what did you
Yeah.
experience and
And like it's I mean it's a little selfish for me because I didn't have that guidance of a father or parents who would give me these kinds of advice. So for me, like I'm just absorbing all kinds of advice questions that I ask you because it helps me in my life.
I also think too. I kind of that's something that I wouldn't call it a regret, but it is something that over the years is I really wish I had grandparents. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
because they would have taught me lots of things. I tell you what they would have taught me is Italian. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
And also what it was like in the old country. There's that. But you know what? We play the cards we're dealt.
Yeah.
And but by extension, I'm always happy to give any my time to any younger person who wants it.
Mhm.
Which I've been doing with you, and I want to thank you for allowing me to do that. And on that note, I guess we'll see you next week, maybe.
Yeah, so we'll see you next week with the next shirt. We'll give the people the tally of how many shirts we've done. All right. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your week and weekend. Talk to you
Yes,
soon.
you do. Take care.
Okay. Bye.